Hello and welcome to this video on Sing Song by Daljit Nagra from the AQA Love and Relationships Poetry Unit. Let's get into it. So this is probably the most controversial poem in the anthology. It's certainly the most modern, but really it's definitely the most humorous. It's definitely the most kind of, I would say, engaging in terms of the kind of language used. And really, it's meant to be fun. This is a fun poem. Now, because it's obviously quite an extended one, I'll just kind of launch straight into the analysis without going through a reading. So if we just firstly come to the title, Sing Song. There's an element here, isn't there? There's a kind of feeling of almost like a nursery rhyme, a sing song, something quintessentially British. And this taking of things that are stereotypically, quintessentially British and covering them, sort of translating them through the Punjabi Indian background of Nagra's heritage is an important part of this poem. Okay, because this sing here obviously reflects this Punjab um, heritage. Nagra's writing as one of the kind of a second generation Indian Brit. And he's kind of showing here throughout this poem this combination of cultures. And this multiculturalism is like a vital part and an incredibly important part of our national identity. And of course, this is British literature. So it's the combination of cultures. Like, what do you take from one and add to the other? How do you combine them? How do you bring them together? The first line says, I run just one of my daddy's shops. Now, just one implies that his daddy has many. He's obviously very successful and a very successful businessman, and he's given his son the opportunity to run. So this is kind of familial obligation, right? So at the start, if you run a shop, you serve your community. You serve your community, you provide things that they need, right? Now, the next line shows us maybe why the speaker is a little bit frustrated, because the hours are from 9 o'clock to 9 o'clock. We're talking about 12-hour days, long old days, long days. And he want me to not to have a break, but then nobody in, I do the lock. Now, this is a first emergent, I guess, of a reflection of accent, this kind of combined Indian British accent, again showing a sense of pride in heritage, a pride in background. He's being pushed hard by his father, right? By dad. He want me not to have a break, but then nobody in, I do the lock. So he says when no one's around, he locks the door. So we start to see this hint of rebellion emerge. And then we tell us why. Because up the stairs is my newly bride. That sense of possessive. And we see that this is a kind of romantic introduction to his wife, his newly bride. This poem is kind of like double-sided, right? On the one hand, it's about family. On the other hand, it's about love. Okay? What do they do? We share in chapati, we share in chutney. Again, typical Indian dishes here. And after we have made love, like we rowing through Putney. So obviously, this is a very sexual image. And it shows us what he'd rather be doing than running his father's shop. He wants to be with his wife, right? He wants to be with his wife. Like the rowing through Putney. rowing through Putney. Now, Putney is in South London. It's very affluent. It's very aspirational. Okay, and it shows us again the kind of drawing in of cultural influences. Then I returned with my pinny untied. Now we start to see how maybe he's a little bit distracted. This is his outfit. The shoppers always point and cry. So he's obviously a little bit neglectful of his responsibilities, right? We have this sort of reported speech here of the others who come in. Hey, Singh, where you been? Your lemons are limes, your bananas are plantain. This dirty little floor need a bit of a mop in the worst Indian shop on the whole Indian road. So we're seeing here, again, bit of comedy, but there's something serious underneath, isn't it? That he's very untidy and not really taking his obligations that seriously, spending too much time with his wife. Then, what's happening with his wife? Well, she's above him. Now, here we might see, I often, with my students, have said in the past, above my head, there's a sense of like a power dynamic emerging, and you'll see this a little bit further. Like his wife is above him, in power, right? High heel tap on the ground, high heel. So we start to see, don't we, these kind of Western clothing choices. As my wife on the web is playing with the mouse, then she netting two cat on her Sikh lover's side. Now, this is often interpreted as essentially she is tricking lonely people on the internet. And again, I guess it shows her kind of mischievous side, mischievous, kind of a little bit cheeky, a little bit, again, rebellious, just like her husband. She booked them for the meat and at the cheese of her price. Again, she's in charge. Now we learn more about his bride. My bride, my bride. We have this nice repetition. My bride, my bride. Okay, and sort of presented to us in this way, visually impactful. And when we learn what she does. So firstly, she effing at my mum. Effing is obviously a reference to swears. Obviously, massive disrespect. In all the colours of Punjabi, then stumbled like a drunk. She's obviously drinking alcohol. Again, coming back to that idea of rebellion, making fun at my daddy. And he seems to like this. There's a sense of happiness, like he finds it funny. My bride, tiny eyes of a gun and the tummy of a teddy. So she's both vicious, but to him, she's soft. My bride is once again repeated. The repetition of my bride. Obviously, there's a sense of attraction, a sense of desire. There's a sense of also, I guess, of kind of possessiveness here. She have a red crew cut. Crew cut, of course, non-traditional hairstyle. She wears a tartan sari. Tartan, obviously the colours of Scotland. The sari, a traditional Indian dress. A donkey jacket and some pumps on the squeak of the girls that are pinching on my sweetie. So here again, we're essentially seeing more examples of his wife's very rebellious attitude. Then I return from my tickle with my bride. This is obviously another reference to kind of physical relationships, physical relations. The shoppers always point and cry. But they're starting to get angry now. Hey, Singh, where you been? The milk is out of date and the bread is always stale. We still have that element and that idea of neglect emerging. The things you have on offer, you never have got in stock. So he's a very poor worker. And that's probably because, of course, he is distracted by love in the worst Indian shop on the whole Indian road. Now, the repetition here of Indian, again, reflecting the community that he lives in, but also this sense of shame that will start to emerge. He's not looking after the family business in the way that he's supposed to. And he's kind of siding, I guess, more with his wife. Then we move into the final section. Late in the midnight hour, venue shoppers are wrapped up and quiet. Now, here we are in a kind of typical romantic environment. Okay, in the midnight hour, and all the shoppers are wrapped up quiet when the precinct is concrete cool. We come down the whispering stairs and sit on my sewer stool. So here we have a very intimate visual image, right, of these two lovers finding some peace and quiet to be together. But they're in this very kind of domestic place. They're in behind the chocolate bars. They stare past the half-price window signs at the beaches of the UK and the brighty moon. We see here these elements of romance. From the stall each night she say, "How much do you charge for that moon, baby?" We can see this as her mocking his father again, taking on his voice, taking the mickey a little bit. From the stall each night I say, "It's half the cost of you, baby." And we see this kind of back and forth, this, I would say, almost like call and response between the two lovers. From the stall each night she say, "How much does that come to, baby?" Again, still that kind of polite teasing, that mocking. From the stall each night I say, "It is priceless, baby." And it ends on this very romantic note because their love is priceless. So overall, this is a poem that examines the kind of the pull that love has on a person, right? It pulls people away from their families. And that's the kind of key to sing song. Thank you.